Hello everybody and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an hour together and my goal here is to help you get the most out of AI for 2025 and beyond. It's a time of year when a lot of people are doing their strategic planning, thinking ahead to the next year, and of course AI has been a big topic for the last 2 years and it's only going to continue getting bigger and bigger. So I want to share some ideas about what's coming up in the future as well as some practical things that you can do right now with AI. I see, looking at the people who have joined, that there are a lot of people who've already been to my presentations before. So hello to old and new friends, and also some people who haven't. So let me give you my typical 3 rules of engagement for all my presentations. So the first thing I want you to do is very much I want to give you some things to think about. So maybe some new ideas, and can I suggest to you that you're open-minded in this session and even think bigger than you normally would, because it's easier to do that for an hour now and then step back as life gets in the way, rather than thinking small now and then trying to expand your thinking when lots of things are happening. So the second thing is, if you're here live, then there'll be opportunities for you to interact. So I've planned this so they've got tons and tons of slides that if nobody asks me questions, if nobody engages in the chat, I've got plenty of material. However, I hope that I don't get through it all. And my plan is that I'll jump ahead and leave some of the optional material, because you'll be asking me questions in the chat. So type questions in the chat as we go. I've got some questions for you to engage as well, and we can interact so you can get the most value out of this session. This is also being recorded, so if you're watching the recording, hello to you there. So you don't get the benefit of having the live interaction, but you'll still get the value from the recording as well. And the third thing is, I really want to give you some practical things to take away and put into action. Because it's easy for me to say, here's what's coming up with AI, and you can look at it and go, a bright shiny object or something to be afraid of. And it's easy to think about that and not actually take action. And I'd love you to have some really specific things that you can take away and do specifically at the end of this session. In fact, let me give you an example of some of the things that people have said they're already interested in. So I sent out an email asking the people who registered at the time, what are your biggest challenges and questions about AI? And these are some of the things that came up. So thank you so much for the people who did share, because let me share with you the sort of things that people said they were interested in. So yes, people want to know what's next in AI, but also there are things like, my team isn't interested, so what do? I feel like I'm fighting this battle alone. There's fear about AI, there's a lack of trust about people using AI in our organization. With the sort of AI that we're using, it's not good enough to have 90%, 98%, that we need 100% accuracy and reliability. We're falling behind. Okay, because we know that there's lots of other people using AI and we're not. We don't know what we don't know. So that's, again, I'll give you some insights into what's coming up in the future, so you'll know a little bit more about that. And just one more, most of our AI is blocked in our organization. So as you can see from that list there are 2 kinds of things that people raised. One is, we don't know what's coming up in the future and we'd like to know, so please tell us so we can move towards that. And the other is, we kind of have an idea and we're actually really enthusiastic about, excited about using it, but for whatever reason our organization is stopping us from using it. So I want to give you some ideas in both of those areas. So we'll definitely look at what's coming up in the future of AI, but also I want to give you some practical things that if you're feeling stuck in your organization, I'll give you some practical things based on my experience over the last couple of years working with lots of organizations about actually making AI happen. If you want a bit of a preview, the most important thing is that it's about people first, technology second. So you can have the best AI and IT infrastructure, the cybersecurity in place, but if you haven't got your people on board, then it's all a waste of time. So you need to bring your people along, minds and hearts first, and then make sure that they've got the tools that they can work with. Okay, in terms of engagement, I know many people here have already used Zoom and are really comfortable using it. But if you're new to it, can I invite you to do one little thing first? So let's do a bit of an experiment today. We've got the Zoom emoji buttons, reactions, at the bottom of your screen there. So I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about AI? And instead of typing in the chat, because I'm going to ask you to do a lot of that later, but instead of typing in the chat, use one of those emojis to share for the group how you feel about AI. And we'll just get a feel in the room. So how do you feel about AI? Okay, interesting. Okay, good. Some people are loving it, which is good to hear. Yeah, thumbs up. There's a few open mouths. Good. I think I even saw somebody angry. Excellent. And can I also invite you, as we go through this session, I'm not going to stop and ask you to use emoji reactions at any time, but can I ask you that any time you have a feeling that you want to share with the rest of the group, press one of those emoji reactions for anything that's coming up in the room, because it helps just us all understand what's happening in the room. Let's do another bit of a temperature check, because I'd like to know, how much are you using AI? And we won't do this using the chat. I'll actually ask you, if I was to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, let's talk about in your professional workplace, how much do you use AI? It's a little bit subjective, but the idea is that if you say 10, it's like, Gihan, I'm using AI every day, it's an integral part of everything that I do, then that's a 10. 1 is I don't use AI at all. It's not whether you want to use it or not, but how much are you actually using it? So in the chat, please, on a scale of 1 to 10, can you please share how much are you using AI in your organization at the moment, for yourself, personally? And we'll see what the room's saying. And I can see the responses coming in as well. And I know some of the people are using it a lot. Right. Okay. So we seem to be settling around the 4 or 5 mark, and generally in a broad audience like this is what I find. And with some organizations who are right on board and they're using it, it's way up there, 7, 8 or 9 or 10, because lots of people are using it, and that's good, that's fantastic. But because they've got the organization support, they've got the people on board, and everyone's jumped on the AI train, it's really high. Some organizations it's really low because they're just not using it yet, partly because they don't know, partly because they're waiting for the organization to put things in place. And I can understand that can be frustrating and difficult if you're one of those people who says, I really want to use it, I want my team to start using it, but our organization isn't on board yet. And I've got some really practical tips for you today about that. So this is for leaders. It's for leaders and managers at all levels of the organization. You don't have to be the CEO or the general manager or somebody who's got authority for everything AI related and technology related. This is for you if you're a leader at any level. One of the things I always talk about when I talk about AI is, I should say that the thing I'm about to show you, I'm not a financial planner, I've never been one, never played one on TV. So what I'm showing you is not financial advice, but it's some advice that I got from somebody who was qualified to give that advice. And I'm sure most people here in the room would have heard something like this. So the advice is this. I'm sure it'll be familiar to many people. It's about risk and return. And it says low risk, low return, high risk, high return. Okay, can I ask just very quickly in the chat, can you type in whether you've heard something like that? Type in yes or no if you've heard something like that sometime in your life. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of yeses coming through, and in fact there's 100% yes. Okay, so not much of a difficult question here. So we've all heard some advice like that. Now, I'm very, very grateful to Dr. Paul Council, who used to teach wealth education programs here in Western Australia and around the country, I think. And I signed up to one of his programs more than 20 years ago. And part of that meant that I got access to one-on-one coaching as well as whatever else he was doing. And I remember him saying to me once in one of my one-on-one sessions with him, he said, mate, this is not the way to think about risk and return. So he had a different philosophy. It doesn't sound as sexy, but I'm really grateful that he shared this with me, and I'm now getting to share it with you. Because he said it's not about that, it's about knowledge. And his philosophy was high knowledge, higher potential return, and high knowledge, lower potential risk. And I've always remembered that. And it's not only about investing in property and shares or Bitcoin. It's also about whatever you invest in, whether it's investing in your own education, whether it's investing as an organization in AI and AI learning. It's always about increasing your knowledge, and that increases your potential return. So a big part of what I think is important for bringing your people along on the AI journey is give them opportunities to learn, because otherwise they learn from just what they hear around the traps. And a lot of that, unfortunately, is negative stories. So stories like this that said that 40 to 50% of CEOs say AI is going to destroy us in the next decade. Now, I think the reason you should ignore that is because it's not really useful. So is it true or is it not? We can have a philosophical argument over a bottle of wine around that. But for practical purposes, as a leader or a manager, that's not very useful. It is interesting, and lots of people ask me questions like that. I'm going to ask you, please, if you're asking philosophical questions like that, don't ask it now, but I have very interesting conversations with people about that. Today, I want to make it about practical things that you can do as a leader or a manager. I will, though, recommend this fantastic book by Toby Walsh. There's a number of really good books talking about AI in the future. Toby Walsh is an Australian AI researcher, and he talked to a whole bunch of his mates who are also experts in this area about their predictions and what they see as AI, what AI is going to look like in the future. He didn't get to me, but I guess the email went to my junk mail. So he wrote this book called 2062, and I think it's really fantastic because it envisions what our world might look like with very much an Australian angle, or includes an Australian angle, and in a lot of different areas. So I highly recommend, if you're interested in understanding what AI researchers around the world are predicting, without being overly hyped and overly scary, what AI will look like, then I really recommend Toby Walsh's book. Okay, and you can find it now, easy to find. All right, let's get into what AI is going to look like in the future, and also what some of the things that you can do. So I'm going to share here anonymously, I'm going to share some of the responses that came in when I asked people, what are your biggest challenges using AI? And as we go through, I'll answer some of these. But also, I'll give you plenty of time for you to ask me questions as well. Okay, so I want to give priority to the people who ask questions, but also help to happily answer the questions as we go. So this is one that came in. I'm keeping it anonymous. So I love using it. There's lots more we could do, but our organization is just slow. So we can't use any AI at all except for Copilot, and even that is in a restricted way. Okay, so I'm kind of paraphrasing. I've summarized it here on this picture here. So this is a really common thing that I get, and generally when I talk to clients, I say there are 4 levels of using AI, and it's easy to get frustrated because you can't use it at the highest level, but you may be able to still get a lot of value using it at lower levels. By the way, the people who ask the questions, feel free if you want to comment and add further to your question after I answer it, that's fine, but also that's okay if you don't, because I'm answering the question for everyone in the room. So here are the 4 levels. So the first one is, and we'll touch on each of these, so let me give you an overview first. The first one's personal, so using AI at home for personal things in your personal life. The next one is professional, where you're using AI at work to make you a better professional, and it may not be related to your job, to your core job, but it's the sort of things like admin tasks like meetings and managing email and other things like dealing with people that are not necessarily specific to any industry. Then you start looking at projects, and these are small scale projects that you can implement with your team. Okay, and of course you do it within the AI policy, but it doesn't need your whole organization's buy-in for you to run one of these projects. And I'll give you some examples of projects that I've helped facilitate for clients, as well as other examples of projects that you might do. And the last one, the top one, is platform, where AI becomes an integral part of everything that you do, and it's a platform for you delivering your core service or your core product. Okay, so let me start with that. We're actually going to go through it from bottom to top, but I'm going to jump to the top one first and talk about some of the platform examples that are happening in the world right now. And I know I really want to make it practical. So this is actually happening. It's not theoretical, or in 2 years' time we'll have the technology to do that. Okay, so we'll do platform first, and then we'll do personal, professional, and projects. And just by the way, we're not going to spend a lot of time on personal. I used to, like a year ago, 18 months ago, I used to spend a lot of time on that because most people hadn't even tried out ChatGPT. Now I'm finding that we need to spend less time on that, and I think the two in the middle, professional and projects, are the real sweet spot where you can get value regardless of what level of leadership you're at. But let's start with the platform, and this is one of the responses I got. Our biggest problem is we just don't know what we don't know. So let me give you some really specific examples of how this is being used in Australia. I'll start with this. This is actually a poll that I want to do here. Amazon did this poll. Amazon in Australia did a poll for asking leaders around Australia, CEOs, and there's companies, of course, and other leaders, about the impact of AI. There's sort of results like this that you could get salary. If it's really good for employees. Here's another question that they asked. They asked leaders, do you think your organization will be an AI-driven organization by 2028? So 3 years, 3.5 years actually now from the time that they asked the question. And I'm going to, let's see, let me show you the poll question. So what percent of Australian leaders expect their organizations to be AI-driven organizations by 2028? So I've got 4 options for you there, A, B, C, or D. So if you think it's 30% of leaders said that, then type in A in the chat. If you think it's 50%, type in B, and so on. Type in the letters A, B, C, and D. Don't type in the numbers because otherwise it won't register. And we'll see the poll results as they're coming up. All right, I've got Max Hitchens here, who's an expert on the Melbourne Cup. So if he was doing this, I'd ask Max to narrate as we're going. We see that 50% is coming up in the lead, but 70% is now coming up, is falling behind. So I won't ask Max to do that, and I won't inflict my race call on you. But we can see at the moment that it's most people, about half the people in the room, just under half, say that 50% of Australian leaders said that their organisation is going to be AI driven in the next 3 years. The actual answer was 90%. 90% of Australian leaders say AI is moving so fast that our organisation is going to be AI driven. Doesn't mean that we'll have robot overlords managing everything, but it means that AI is going to be as valuable to us as Google and technology, and having a diverse workforce and having multiple generations working for us. Those are essential for the organization of the future, and AI is as well. So the first person who said 90% was Ian. Congratulations, Ian. Thank you for that. But it's interesting, are you surprised by that? So in a way, I feel sorry for the 10% who didn't say that, because I think our organizations do have to move to be more AI driven. So let me give you some examples of what's happening in Australia right now. So I've just picked a few examples because we've just had quarterly reporting, and many Australian companies have shared their current reports, and many of them are talking about how they're using AI. So I've just got a few of them for you here as examples. So Commonwealth Bank, one of the biggest companies in Australia, so they're using AI a lot for personalised offers to customers, especially through the CommBank app, and from a security viewpoint for their customers, they are doing they're reviewing millions of transactions automatically to do things like detect online scams and look for things like and not just scams, but also for fraud and fraudulent transactions. And this is happening with AI, and the AI will try to do as much as it can automatically and then escalate things that it can't manage or things it's not sure about to a human if required. Okay, so Combank's using AI in that way, and in many other ways as well. BHP is using AI very much in its exploration and all its operations, but it's using it to look at geological survey results to identify potential mining sites. And they found copper mines as a result of AI being applied to the data that they gather. In healthcare, this is an example from Sonic Healthcare, which specializes in pathology and radiology. You might have had scans at Sonic Healthcare, and they're using AI a lot to help, to assist the humans who are looking at scans. And that they've developed their own AI that's looking at chest x-rays to do an initial diagnosis or to find potential problems that a human might miss. And it's always done with the human and AI together. Here's another one. This is Origin Energy. So utilities are using AI a lot, and they're one particular use, and it's not just Origin doing it, but many are trying to predict the patterns of consumer use for energy. And there's some obvious things, like at the moment we're going through a heat wave in Perth this week, so we know that there's going to be an increased demand for electricity because of air conditioners. So there's some things like that which humans can say, based on this happening, this is going to happen. But the AI doesn't necessarily think that way. The AI just looks for patterns and then combines it with what's happening and then comes up with a prediction. So it can be smarter in quotation marks, than what necessarily the humans would say, oh, it's going to be a hot summer, so there's going to be more air conditioning. And then as a result of that, they use that for resource allocation. One other, this is REA Property. They've got a home styling tool for people who are doing renos. You can go online and you can design your whole reno, plan your reno, see what it looks like in 3D. And they're not the only people doing this. We've seen other people doing that in the past as well. IKEA had a version where you take a photo of your lounge and then you can pop in a photo of an IKEA product in there, and you could see in 3D what that would look like in your lounge. They've had that for years. That wasn't AI, but now more and more AI is being used to augment that experience. Okay, so those are some examples of how companies are using AI right now. Okay, I'm going to stop and give you the chance to ask me some questions. If you've got a question, pop it in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them, and then we'll move on to the other three areas. And while you're thinking about your question, here's one that came in earlier, again from the people who asked me. This is one about accuracy. So AI gets things wrong, and in the world that this person works in, it's not good enough to be 98% okay. See, I often say to my clients, when you're starting to use AI, make sure that you're in the loop. So even if the AI is only 80% good enough, then you apply your human intelligence on top of it. But there are some situations where you need 100% accuracy. Driverless cars, for example. It's not good enough to have a car that's only safe 98% of the time, because 2% of the time, 1 in every 50 times, it does something unsafe. Okay, so there's some things where you have to set a really high bar for accuracy, safety, reliability, and others you don't. Okay, just seeing if there are any other questions coming up. Okay, Louise has asked a question, like a kind of broad question. So Louise, can you just narrow that down, because I'm interested to know for you in your workplace, can you give me some context behind that question, and for you as a leader specifically? Okay, so okay, so Richard's asked a question, to what extent is AI being used to fine-tune AI projects? And it is. So it is being used. So the way that we normally are thinking about using AI is using AI ourselves to get results, but AI is now being used to improve AI as well. So it's generally happening only at that top level, at that the platform level, where people are really integrating AI into their workplace, and then they're using AI to improve itself. So it's part of the exponential growth around AI. And it's actually, okay, since you asked the question, I'll answer this here, Richard, with a little bit of a quick diagram to help sketch out an answer to that. Because what's happening with AI growth at the moment, if I can quickly sketch this out, is it's growing very fast. Okay, so we all know that AI is growing. Well, I think we know that AI is growing kind of at an exponential rate. Okay, now what's happening is that's fine. Like if you're following that curve and you're moving along exponentially as well, fantastic. But many organizations are still, they either haven't started, they haven't jumped on that curve yet, or they're going really, 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 really slowly. Okay. Now, the obvious downside of that is that if you're going really slowly, it's going to be much harder for you to catch up because the gap's getting wider and wider and bigger and bigger. So the sort of thing that you asked about, Richard, is where AI is working with AI itself, is actually making this original curve even steeper. So it's growing faster and faster. Now, I will say that you don't need to catch up and be right at the leading edge of AI to get value. You absolutely don't. And for many of my clients who are saying, oh, we feel like we're already too far behind, it's not true. There are things that you can do at this level to start, let's make it green so it's positive, things you can do at this level to start getting value from AI right now. And I'm going to give you some examples of that now. So don't worry if you feel, oh, we're already too far behind. You're not too far behind, but you might be behind. And there are things that you can do to move forward. Okay, let me just see other questions here. Okay, so Natalie asked about making sure that you've got sensitive information is not compromised. Yeah, and this is going to be true at every one of those 4 levels. Okay, so this is where it's really important that you've got your organization's IT department on board when you're doing AI projects, and especially at that platform level, because as soon as we put data, the more data we put into the cloud, or more data we make available to AI, the better it will be, but also the more potential for risk. And this is like, make sure you've got your IT department on board. IT departments actually want things to happen. So sometimes they're seen as the obstacle, but they actually want things to happen. And if you can give them a good case for, here's why we should actually enable Copilot and this feature of Copilot for this team because they can create this value, great. Give them the reason and they'll do that. But make sure you've got them on board. I'll touch on that again later. Okay, so Sam's asked a question. Can I ask again for your context, Sam? Because I don't want to make this just a broad response. I want to ask in your specific situation. You don't have to tell me your big organization, but you can ask about, you may want to share your industry, so I can answer that more specifically. Again, Toby Walsh's book, 2062, has some really good examples of this, examples of both AI automating work that humans can do and also augmenting so humans can do their work better and faster. Common traits of organizations that are adopting AI. Yeah, okay, so Janine, I think the biggest thing is that they understand that AI can be adopted at different levels. So I work with a very, very large organization in Australia with helping their team get going with AI. And what they said to me is they said, we understand that AI is big, but also some of our people are worried about it. And they said, can you come in and do a session about AI and just show them how to use AI themselves, even on their personal stuff at home, to demonstrate that it's got value. And so what they're doing is they're doing a big rollout of using Copilot, and they'll build their own AI because they're big enough to do those sort of things. But what they want is that when they launch that big project and say, hey, AI is here for everybody, they want their people to already be up to speed and comfortable with AI. So it's not a big thing that they say, oh, no, we've launch this new AI, massive AI thing. So that's the people who are doing it really well are the ones who recognize that it's not a technology journey, it's a people journey that's using technology. Max asked a question about AI going rogue. Okay, so again, and Max, I'm not going to address that here because again, it's one of those things that, yeah, sure, but it's not going to necessarily affect us whether this is true or false. Again, I'd highly recommend, and Max, I know that you're a futurist yourself, so for you specifically, that book 2062, I think you'll find it really interesting to see see some of the predictions, pros and cons of what our future might look like when AI is just natural part of our world. Okay, thank you, Sam, for clarifying that. So I work in tech as an international consultant. Many roles in tech are being automated. Um, yeah, so like all of the global research says that there's a whole bunch of jobs that are going to become change in a massive way and sometimes obsolete as a result of AI, and there are more jobs that are going to be created as a result of AI. The catch is those two are not the jobs are not the same, and the employees in job A, which becomes obsolete or almost obsolete, isn't necessarily equipped to move into job B, unless they and their employers work to make that happen. And again, I've worked with organizations where they're saying, we realize that this section is going to be have a massive impact due to AI, and what can we do to help transition them, to upskill them and give them other opportunities in the organization, because we value them as people and we want those people in our organization, even if it's in a different role. Good. I'm happy to keep answering questions. I'm keeping an eye on time and we're going really well. Okay, so Sam, I'll just share Sam's last comment here, her final comment. So thanks for your perspective. AI is making it a lot easier to cost cut. Yes. And the organizations who are only looking at it as cost cutting are going to struggle. It's the same and we've seen this before, right? We saw this in the 90s when there's a whole bunch of mergers and acquisitions, and the easiest way to improve the bottom line is to get rid of some of your people in the short term. And it's not a long-term solution. And it's the same here. That's why the education piece, increasing your knowledge, is so valuable. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate that. Okay, so let's move on to this. Let's look at this personal one, and I won't spend a huge amount of time on it. But again, and in fact, I told you the story that I was going to share about this client who said, teach our people just how to use AI and just be comfortable with AI, so we're ready for them. So I've shared that story. Let me ask you, actually I'll ask people in the room, because I think I know the answer, but let me not assume. If I ask you the question, are you using AI regularly? Actually, let's ask it a different way. Let me ask you a different way. Can you type in the chat, and you do this in 1 or 2 words, what you're using AI for at home? Okay, so it might be meal planning or something like that. It might be, okay, so let's see, school homework, okay. Okay, fantastic. So a lot of people are using it for travel. Lots of people are using it for, okay, a lot of people are using it for writing copy. I'm curious to know, like, what writing copy, because that seems to be really popular. But for this copy, what sort of copy are you writing at home? Is it, for example, an invitation to a 6-year-old's birthday party that you're sending out to all of the people in the parents group? Is it something like that? Yeah. And I see some people have written long answers which don't appear on this cloud. So, but things like cooking, shopping, holiday planning, brainstorming, ideating, fantastic. That's really good. Research, yeah, Christmas invites, ideas for Secret Santa gifts, things like that. They're the sort of things that you can get a lot of value from using AI. And we're not talking about, and by the way, we're talking about the free AI. Free ChatGPT is really good now, and that alone is good enough to help you in a huge way. So we're not talking about a huge investment of money, and also it's not a huge investment of time. Okay, so thanks everyone. Thank you for doing that. Let me give you a couple of quick ideas, because a lot of them have been covered already. When you go out to a restaurant, so I take photos when we go out to restaurants, because I like to post positive Google reviews. I posted this photo and asked ChatGPT to give me the recipe for that prawn dish that we had at Manuka Wood-Fired Kitchen in Fremantle, for people who know it, and highly recommended. I took a photo of my gym because I went in one early Sunday morning. I was the only person in the gym. I just took the photo for fun, but asked AI to create a 30-minute workout for me focused on legs, just as an experiment, compared it with the personal trainer at the gym created when I joined the gym, and it was pretty close. Okay, so it identified the equipment and created a workout for me. Now, I would not use that workout without actually talking to a human. Okay, but I was doing it as an experiment to see how closely it came to what the human said. But even though it got it right that time, I still wouldn't trust it the next time. I always want to be able to add my own intelligence on top of it. I went to the cricket here in Perth last week when we lost badly to India. Seem to have recovered now, but we lost badly, and 10 minutes after the test match was over, I was on ChatGPT saying, what does this mean for our chances for the World Test Championship final? And it gave me some very detailed analyses of different scenarios and so on. I still don't think we're safe. But anyway, for people who, if you want to ask it for really important things like cricket or for other less important things in your life, absolutely use it. And as I said, the ChatGPT, the free version, is great at home. So if you're a leader, so the two tools that people tend to use are ChatGPT or Copilot. If you're a leader or a manager and you're frustrated about being able to use Copilot at work, fair enough, but it doesn't stop you from encouraging your team to use AI at home by just signing up to, say, the free version of ChatGPT. I'm not in any way encouraging, in fact, I'm discouraging you from taking work home and asking ChatGPT to do it at home because you can't do it at work. That's really a CLM, a career limiting move, and it might be against your employment contract, let alone privacy and confidentiality. But like that other client I was telling you about, get your people comfortable with using AI. Because I find many organizations I go into, the people are just not comfortable yet. And there's another comment which will come up soon around people are just afraid of it. They don't trust it. They don't know enough about it. And I'm frustrated because I want them to know more, and I know there is more. Well, tell them to use it at home. In terms of Natalie's question here, ChatGPT or Copilot is one better than the other. In terms of the context we're talking about today, Natalie, at work, do whatever your organization tells you to do, which is basically your IT team and other leaders. And many corporates are using Copilot because it's part of the Microsoft suite of products, and they're already using Microsoft products. For people who aren't using that, so for me, I can use the Microsoft products, but I'm not tied to them. So I prefer ChatGPT. But there are other advantages, like Copilot will say things, will do things like it'll work on your documents. So like on your Word documents and Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint, if they've enabled all that access in your organization, Copilot, you can give it a spreadsheet and say, do some analysis of this and tell me what are the trends and what should we be looking for in the next quarter sales and so on. Now, you can do that in ChatGPT as well, but you're uploading an internal spreadsheet to ChatGPT, and there's a potential security risk there, or privacy risk. With Copilot, like, we all trust Microsoft, right? We do, right? We do. We've got our documents that we know that, like internal spreadsheets, that we know that Microsoft isn't eavesdropping on them or secretly stealing them. So we should trust it with Copilot as well. That's why many workplaces are saying you can only use Copilot at work, because it automatically gives you more protection. At home, use ChatGPT, and many independent businesses are just using ChatGPT as well. Okay, Sam, do you think the free tiers will eventually contain ads? So yes, so that is one thing to be aware of. So there's another tool called, so the Perplexity or Claude, I can't remember which one now. There might be somebody who knows here. I think it's Perplexity. So they now are offering, when you do a search for products, it will link you to where you can buy the products online. And it's probably not too far a stretch to say that in the future that will be sponsored, and there will be people clamoring to make their products the top in the AI results, just like people pay for their products to be the top of Google search results. Thank you, Ed. It is Perplexity. Yes, thank you. And that it is that was just in the last couple of weeks that came out. Okay, so Max says, do you think we'll soon have to pay for all AI usage? It's an interesting question, Max. So the reason I now say to people, you can happily use the free version of ChatGPT without any worries. So it used to be like a year ago when I was talking, especially to leaders, I would say, don't use the free version. I think you should invest in the paid version, even if your organization doesn't allow it. And now I don't say that anymore because this year in May, they launched a new version of ChatGPT where they made almost everything that was previously in the paid version, they made it available free. Why? Because they know they'll get huge value from people using it. Okay, so they're buying our data, and having our data and our interactions with AI to train AI is more valuable to them than charging them $30 a month, $1 a day, which is the cost of the paid version. So I think there's definitely going to be a shift towards that AI is going to become like free or much more lower cost. There is an opposing argument to that as well, and that is that at the moment people are investing billions of dollars in AI, and these venture capitalists are investing money at a loss, hoping that it's going to become better later. And if those losses continue, they're going to take the money out, or they're going to stop the investment. And therefore, there is an argument that these AI companies will have to start charging money so they break even or make a profit. Okay, I don't know where that's going to go. And for us today, it almost doesn't matter, because that's not relevant for us using it right now. Let's use what we've got. Okay, let me do the next section. In fact, I covered quite a lot of what I was going to cover in the professional section, and it's basically using AI for things in your professional role in the same way that you'd use it for your personal role. And it's not specifically around your specific job. So the idea is that you want to get, just as in your personal role, get quick wins from doing common tasks. So the people who are using AI, even the people who are using it a lot, many of them don't think about doing things like this. They go, oh, I've got a workplace question or workplace issue that I want some help with. One of my team members won't be happy with his pay rise. I gave one of my team members that opportunity to present to a customer, and they made a big mistake. I want to ask my boss for more resources. One of my people always interrupts other people, especially women, in team meetings. So actually, I'll come back to this thing here. Are you using AI for things like that? Can I ask you, just type in the chat. I'm curious, are you using AI regularly whenever you have something that you're wondering about or wrestling with at work? Can I just ask you to type yes or no in the chat? Because I'm finding even the people who are kind of using it for their work role, many of them don't think about using it for this. And so the results we're getting are typical, right? Yeah. Yes, about 1 in 3 people are using it for things like that already, which is great if you're doing that. And if it's not, I recommend that you do. I really do, because it's such an easy way to get some ideas about how to tackle a situation. And I'm very careful about my wording here, because I'm not saying you're using it for, you should trust anything that it gives you. You should never. In fact, people say to me, how often should I trust what AI gives me? And my answer is never, never, never trust what it gives you. Always apply your human eye and human brain, your human intelligence, on top of the artificial intelligence. And the thing that I showed you that popped up before was, whenever I do conference keynote presentations about AI, I give audiences a resource pack. They scan a QR code, they can download my books and worksheets and so on. This is one of the other things I've started doing. I put together a list of really useful ChatGPT prompts, so more than 50. In fact, over the next couple of months, I'm going to expand it to 100. Prompts to get started. You don't need to be an expert in ChatGPT anymore in how to write prompts, because the AI is getting much better at learning, at understanding what you're asking, and also remembering what you've asked before, so it answers in context. But the real value that people are getting from this, from the feedback they give me, is they look at this and they go, I didn't know I could use AI for that. Okay, so I'm expanding it, not to change the prompts that I've written and make them more sophisticated, because they don't need to be, but just to give lots more examples. So it's like I didn't know you could use AI for that, or I never thought about using AI for that. Okay, and I really think that that's something that you should do. So the question that somebody sent me about their biggest challenge was, we just don't. It feels like when you for this person, it's like you're doing something wrong. And again, given that I'm talking to leaders here, be a good example, set a good example for other people in your team, because there will be people in your team who are afraid of using AI. They don't know, they don't trust it, and they don't know much about it. Rightly so, but be a good example and just find ways that you go, oh, let's ask ChatGPT that. I saw that come up earlier in today's session, actually. Somebody asked me about the presentation tools that I'm using, and I saw somebody else in the comments saying, take a screenshot and ask ChatGPT. Okay, and that's really good. That's exactly the sort of example I mean right now. Okay, so use AI and show that you're using AI in everyday work for professional roles. Okay, like how can I respond? Somebody said to me once, she said, I use AI all the time where I say, how can I write this email reply with more emotional intelligence? Okay, so that sort of thing you can do in your workplace. And if you're using Copilot and it's all within the system, then you can ask for it in Outlook. If you're using ChatGPT, of course, you take out any personal sensitive information before you get ChatGPT to respond. Okay, so yes. So Max, where can you buy that? It's not available for sale. So the only way you can buy, well, you can buy it, but you can buy it by engaging me for a keynote presentation. But Max, you and I can talk offline about that, because we've known each other for a long, long time, Max and I. Okay, good. Any other questions about using it in a professional role? Just trying to see if I've missed any questions that came through earlier, because scrolling through, but I don't think I have. Okay, Kathleen's asked this question about Google's Gemini, and Sam has responded to it as well. Thank you, Sam, for responding. So the question is about, like, what's my opinion on Google's Gemini? So in a very broad sense, like, Google's Gemini is the equivalent of Copilot, but for people who don't use the Microsoft suite. So for me, because I use Gmail and Google Docs and Google Sheets, then Google Gemini has access. I can give it access to those documents, and I can ask it similar sort of things. So looking at a Google spreadsheet rather than somebody in the Microsoft suite using Copilot to analyze one of their Excel spreadsheets. So broadly speaking, that's it. Now, if you want to get around the finer details about the differences between them, there are differences, but can I say, for most of us here in the room, and I know there are some exceptions like Ed K. Smith, hello mate, who knows a lot more and is at a much more sophisticated level than most of us, then it doesn't matter. And like I get lots and lots of information about AI every day, because I subscribe to lots of newsletters and stuff, and they're always talking about here's a new model and here's who's investing and here's how these companies are cooperating with each other or collaborating or have broken collaboration. And I'm interested in it. I need to know that. When I put my filter on that says how relevant is this to my clients, almost always the answer is it doesn't matter. Okay, and that's part of my job, to make things relevant. When OpenAI brought out that new enhancement that put all the paid stuff into the free version, that was super relevant. So then that was something that I shared. But 99% of the stuff that comes across my inbox, my desk, is not relevant for most people. And I think that's the same. So yes, I use Gemini. And if you use a Google suite of products, experiment with Gemini. But yeah, I don't think there's much of a difference unless you're using it in a really, really sophisticated, powerful way. I will talk about one other thing after saying I wouldn't, but Sam's talked about Google's Notebook LM or Notebook AI. The Notebook LM is a tool where it's like your private version of AI. So you can upload your documents to it and ask chat questions which are only based on those documents. So it won't go out to the internet to its big database. It will only ask you questions about those documents. So I use that now. Like if I'm thinking about writing another book, I will upload my previous books and say, here's my knowledge base. I want to write another book about this. Can you give me some ideas, and so on. Okay, so it works on your private version. Carla recommends some newsletters. Start with mine because because of what I said. Like, I'll filter it to make it relevant. If you're in kind of a more tech space, there's tons of newsletters you can subscribe to, but I don't want to I don't want to talk about them now because it's actually irrelevant for most people. It might not be for you, Carla, like you might want to actually get into the tech nitty-gritty, but for most people here it's a waste of time and it's confusing and unnecessary. So I'm saying trust me. Okay, let's look at this last area here. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but I've got the chance to demonstrate some things for you here. So in terms of doing projects, this is where you get your team involved in AI. So this is the practical stuff. The professional is as well. It's like in your workplace, you use AI yourself to do these like typical things that happen in the workplace and be a good example for the rest of your team. Okay? But the next step from that is to actually get your team to do AI projects. So if you've got people like this one comment here, somebody said, I feel like I'm fighting this battle alone and my team's not really interested in doing it. The first thing that you do is be a good example to them and show them how you're using AI yourself to solve some actual problems and to give you some guidance. The next thing you do is get some team projects going, and you don't need everybody in your team to be on board. So when I work with organizations, I run this AI accelerator program, and some people only get me for one of these three components, some people get me for all three. So generally I go in and talk to the leaders first and kind of get them convinced that there's a bit of a sales pitch for AI as well as a sales pitch for me, but a sales pitch for here's the value you can get from AI. And then I might do a keynote presentation at a conference about AI, or a more in-depth masterclass to teach people how to use some basic stuff. It's basically the personal and professional stuff. The real value that they get is if they get this AI Champions program. And I've named it Champions because what you want are a couple of AI champions in your team who are also keen and enthusiastic, and your goal is to get them on board. And they're kind of already excited about AI, but get them on board with a project that they can do. So let me give you, I'll give you a couple of quick examples here. This is one that I worked with a services organization here in Western Australia. The CEO's given me permission to share as well. Mercy Care, some people may know, not just in WA, but around the country, but I work with CEO with Mercy Care here in WA, and we worked with their leaders and got all the leaders together. They're from different divisions, and then the first session, they each came up with an AI project that they'd like to experiment with. And then a month later, they came back and said, okay, we've built a prototype and here's what we found. This is one of my favorite examples. One of the services they offer is childcare, and whenever they have a new child who enrolls, they have to create a development plan. The staff have to create a development plan for their child. It used to take 2 to 3 hours, and they used AI. So this team they'd never used AI before. They could hardly spell AI, but they got really excited about it, and they did some research using ChatGPT to research what can we do to create a development plan, and they brought it down to like 10 or 15 minutes. So it's just like 5 minutes uploading all the information about the child. The AI press a button, immediately comes up with the plan, and then 10 minutes for the staff member to, as an expert, has to still review it and make sure it's relevant and appropriate. Okay, so because of that, they save a huge amount of time, obviously money as well, and also they can do it more frequently. And the thing I really love about this project is that when they did that, and when they presented it with the rest to everybody else, there was somebody in HR who said, oh, we need to talk to you about that, because we can use exactly that same system for onboarding a new employee. And somebody in the aged care section said, oh, we need to talk to you about that, because whenever we have a new resident who comes into one of our independent living homes, we need to do a similar sort of thing. Okay, so that's a real value in running these projects. And now this organization had the complete approval and endorsement right from the top. But they do have an IT team who are really, really careful about privacy and data confidentiality, as you can imagine in the healthcare and aged care space and education. So every team had to still make a case for here's how we should be allowed to use it and here's how we can do it. But as I said, the thing I really loved was that as soon as somebody said, here's an idea, somebody else said, we can use that same idea with a little bit of a change. Okay, so this is the concept behind projects. They're not they're not building a platform where everything that they do has an AI base to it. They just did this one project that then they take 3 or 4 months to actually roll it out for that team, and then presumably the other teams are going to come on board as well. So projects are small scale things. They don't require a whole organization wide rollout. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let me give you a couple of live examples of projects. So let me show you. These are very, very simple things, but I've got an implementer on my team. So he's the AI expert in terms of technology. So we put all my books that are available online, books and reports. We added a little AI chatbot here. So you can ask a question. What is the future of AI? Let's say, for example, not a good question because it's about AI, and it'll interrogate my books and books and reports and give an answer, and then at the end it'll say, yeah, for more detailed insights, I recommend checking out this article. And all of the content is within this material here. So that's just an example of AI, a little project that we did. Didn't take very long, but it did take a while to get it to come up with the right sort of format that we wanted. And here's another one. This is a product that again, people who book me for conference keynotes, they often will get this product, which is little activities that they can run at their meetings, at the team meetings, to help them be more innovative, to think more about the future, and so on. So we've got another chatbot here that says, what's a problem you're currently experiencing in your business? And then my people, this is going to change. And what this one does, it says, in this package that you've bought, here are the modules that here are the activities that you might want to do. Okay, and each of these, and all it's doing is saying, here's an activity. It's not giving them the answer, but it's saying, here's an activity in this package that you bought. This is the one to go to, or here are 3 of, actually in this case, yeah, it's giving them 4 that activities that would help them resolve that problem. So it's a really simple AI project that helps with a problem that my clients might have. Okay, so that's the idea, to go, what's the problem that we can solve, and how can AI solve that problem? Let me stop for questions, because I've shown you a couple of examples. I want to do one last demo. I'll show you something coming up with AI in the future. It's already here, but it's coming up. But before I do that, let me just quickly check for other questions coming up in the chat. Hazel's question. So are you using AI to develop and show your slides? So no, I'm not. But if you're talking about more broadly, Hazel, again, that there are lots of tools which will help you with presentations. AI tools where you give it some content and it'll create slides for you. Again, Copilot does that. You can give it a Word document and say, convert this into a PowerPoint presentation, and it will do that. It's a really good example of AI being used kind of at the professional level for you to do things that is not part of your day job, but it's important. And if AI can do the heavy lifting for you and it does 80% of it, you can do the final 20%. Okay, let me just see if there's any other questions. Michelle, okay, bring this. So yeah, professional services in law, we've got a pilot on Copilot. Right, okay, so I haven't got the whole question up here, but I'll say what Michelle's actual, when she gets the question, where could we start? So we're getting support from IT, are now looking for support from HR for training and change strategy. So using the tools becomes second nature. Yeah. So where could we start? What types of activities organizations used to increase capability and motivation? So I think there's 2 parts to this from me answering the question for you, Michelle. So the first part is actually like baby steps, getting people comfortable with using ChatGPT in general, separately from this product that you've created. If they're already there, fantastic. The second part is then training on using this package. Can I suggest that you look at PwC? Because PwC invested $1 billion, a billion with a B, $1 billion in making their organization basically an AI-driven organization. So they created their own version of ChatGPT called ChatPWC, and they're using that, and there are lots of articles have been written about it now. And what they do is not just the $1 billion didn't only go into the software, it also went into the training, and they've set up these ChatPWC mentors around the world and people that you can available on call whenever you've got a question about it. So they've set up this whole infrastructure to help people use their ChatPWC, which is a good thing, of course. Like, you don't want to waste your $1 billion investment. So if you've got $1 billion to do that, great. But most of us haven't, but we can still learn from what PwC is doing. So can I suggest, Michelle, that you just search ChatPWC, and you'll see lots of people are writing about it, talking about it like I am now, and you might get some ideas from the sort of things that they're doing. Okay, so before I finish, I want to show you about AI agents, and this will be my last little demo for you before we finish. So everything we've talked about already so far has been, apart from the platform things, has been about us. We've got some problem that we want solved, and we ask AI to help us with that problem. So we're the ones who, at the time we need it, we prompt AI. The next thing that's coming with AI is already here, but the next thing that you'll start seeing rolled out with more organizations is agents, where the AI does the work autonomously without our involvement. The easiest way for me to demonstrate that is to actually show you an example. So what if you had an AI? So again, this is a little project that we've done internally in my business. What if you had an AI that would sit monitoring your inbox, and every incoming email, it would create a reply and put it back in the inbox in the drafts folder. Okay, so while I'm working, like in this hour that I've been speaking, any email that's come in, the AI is working behind the scenes, and it's created a whole bunch of draft replies. I don't want it to send the replies because I'd never trust AI, but it's created some drafts, and I can tell it how to create the drafts. So that's an example of an agent. It doesn't require me to go in and say, here's an email, can you please help me rewrite or write a reply to it? So it happens autonomous, it happens automatically behind the scenes. Here's another example. So I post on Instagram every week. I just record a video with my phone and post that, but we use then a little agent that then creates the Instagram caption and the emojis and hashtags and things, and finds references to the companies that I talk about. So I want that to happen automatically. So we just put something in a spreadsheet, the script of what I've recorded, and then it just automatically does this in the background. Okay, that's an example where it could actually, I could just prompt it as required, but this email example is one where it's happening automatically. So that's kind of the next step that's coming with AI agents, and I'm sure there are people here like Ed and others who've already seen these in action, and you'll see more of them. You'll see more of them where it happens or in like automatically. In some ways, my two chatbots here are doing a similar thing. Because I'm not there, but I've set up the chatbot, and when somebody interacts, it gives a response immediately. It's not like it's not like they've sent me an email and I then ask ChatGPT, how can I respond? It's happening automatically. So that's the, and I can see people going, Louis saying mind blowing, it's saying huge, and yeah, this is it, right? So this is the next step with AI, and it's already here. Okay, so this, like, the big AI companies are investing billions at the moment into this agents thing. I think OpenAI is one, they're calling it Operator, which somebody said is from a science fiction movie. So that sort of stuff is happening now, where the AI is operating automatically. And again, obviously, there's some really important safeguards that we need to put into place, like I've done. I don't want AI to send emails on my behalf, but I'm very happy for it to draft an email on my behalf. Okay, so just to wrap up very quickly, we've talked about these 4 levels: platform, projects, professional, and personal. I think in terms of us on a practical level, I would think most people here are using professional or projects, or thinking about the next step. Now let me ask you that, because I kind of guess that might be the case. So if I'm saying, let's take action, if you're going to take action now, which of the areas you're going to work in? I'm assuming that you're pretty comfortable using AI on a personal level, and you may not be at the level where you're going to integrate AI into everything. Can I ask, just type in the chat box A or B to say, for the action you're going to take from now, are you going to use AI more from a professional purpose, personally, or are you at the level where you go, oh, I'm really keen to now launch some of these AI projects? Okay, so A or B. Okay, so most people are going towards professional rather than personal. Sorry, rather than projects. Okay, my suggestion for you, regardless of that, thank you for doing that. So it's definitely, although I see more people now saying projects, great. Kate's saying still so much to learn. Absolutely. And this is why, as I said at the start, this is one of those things that you want to keep learning. And on that point, Kate, to follow on to your comment that you just made here, still so much to learn, it's a perfect lead into what I was going to say before we wrap up, which is this: start now and look no further. And I'm not saying don't look at the future. I would never say that. I'm a futurist. I'm required by law to say we need to look at the future. But I will say, make sure that you're not looking too far ahead and looking at problems or how difficult projects are going to be in the future. Do what you can now, because there's a lot you can do now, regardless of what's happening in your organization, in your workplace. I will say also, don't do anything that contravenes your AI policy. It's really important, but also look at things that you can do within that policy. So one of my favorite quotations is from Benjamin Brewster in the late 1800s. He said, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice, there is. Okay, so it's a little bit humorous, but I think it's really important that we go, let's start now. Don't wait for the world to be perfect. Don't wait for the next version of ChatGPT. Don't wait till after the next federal election or in Western Australia state election. I see lots of people waiting for things like that, especially in the public service with elections. You start now, because the world won't wait for you, and especially AI won't wait for you. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks everyone for being so engaged, and I hope that you actually take some action away, take some ideas away and put them into action. I'll see you in the future. Bye for now.